We've all done it, right? We've invested in a board game simply for the reason to get our creative little hands on the components that that game has. Everyone's done that, right? It's not just me. Please tell me it's not just me. See, sometimes a great game also comes with awesome little bits inside, and they're just frosting on the cake. Other times, a game's accessories turn out to be the most compelling part of the actual game. Those are the ones that usually just end up being gutted for parts. In this episode, I'll be sharing my list of the top 10 games that I got first and foremost to use in modding other games or for creating entirely new ones. Games I got just for the parts. If the game itself was fun, then that was just an added bonus. So let's dredge through some boxes for plastic inspiration as I present a pair of Dice Paradise Top 10, the top 10 games for component harvesting.
Saving your game from the mundane, the component proponent, yeah.
At the tail end of my list is the Star Trek version of Settlers of Catan. I recently started a new gaming group in my town that meets a couple times a month, and I needed a new copy of Settlers to bring to it. I could have gone with the original version of the game, but come on. This one includes little enterprises and little space stations that I can use with this and for other games. This one comes in at the end of my list because it's a game I will be playing and I'll be using it to introduce people to Settlers. But I chose this version of it simply to get my hands on the little ships and satellites that it came with. Heroscape is the duct tape of board games. Not only can its pieces be used to supplement other board games and RPGs, but it's a great game in its own right. I can't wait until my 6-year-old daughter is old enough to play it with me. I've had it packed up in boxes for years, just waiting for that glorious day where I can introduce her to it. Parts of the game that aren't currently being used to inject more theme into other games will remain boxed up at number 9 on my list. Many games on my list suffer from a lack of co-player. War of the Ring suffers from this and also from its own strengths. See, it's an epic, in-depth game that recreates the worlds Tolkien created. But that also means it's an epic, in-depth game that takes hours to play. My wife is usually my companion for 2-player games, but the rare spare moments that we have to play games together, they're rarely long enough to indulge in this beauty. Most of the other gaming opportunities I have are in a group environment. So I know War of the Rings Day will come, but until then, its fantastic figures, its dice and map, are just going to have to continue to be used as a big sandbox for tinkering with other game ideas. Speaking of games that unfortunately see more time as a development sandbox than being played as originally intended, we have Twilight Imperium. If playing Twilight Imperium was like driving a car, I feel like I've only had the opportunity to roll it around the block a few times in neutral. It's really rare that I have the time and the number of players necessary to really go full throttle with this game and really take advantage of the immersive gameplay it's capable of. In the meantime, Twilight Imperium has still offered me hours of enjoyment simply by the ideas that its pieces have given me to experiment with. The planet tiles, the plastic ships, and the cards that it comes with nearly make this a game design workshop in a box. This game is a design dabbler's wonderland. Whereas I obtained War of the Ring and Twilight Imperium with the intention of playing them, and found out that the quality of their components was just an added bonus, by contrast, the next game on my list is here for the opposite reason. When I discovered Crude, the part of my psyche that's addicted to polyurethane went nuts. Seriously, I think I had to be sedated. I started hunting for a copy of it, and after I eventually captured my quarry, I'm pretty sure that I had to be sedated again. I really can't remember for sure because my memories of that day are a little fuzzy due to the horse tranquilizer. This game comes with approximately 80 plastic drilling rigs, 16 oil wells, 12 oil refineries, 30 gas stations, 80 crude oil barrels, and 80 gasoline barrels. After I obtained my copy, I reviewed its rules as an afterthought, and I discovered that there's actually a pretty good game included with all of this plastic. Who'd have thunk it? So, Crude earned its place on this list because it actually started out as a game just to be ransacked for parts, but it turned out to be a strong enough game that it earned its right to have its parts kept in its own box so that it could actually be taken out and played as intended. Hoopla and several of the other Cranium games are in my collection simply because of this. The little 10-sided, 5-colored dice that comes with some of these games. Oh, little dice, how I love you, and the ideas for game mechanisms that you inspire within me. I have used this dice in many game ideas that I've toyed with. I use them all the time. In fact, every time I'm at a garage sale, I snatch up any copy of Hoopla that I can find just to get a hold of another one of these wonderful little pentagonal trapezoids. Pentagonal trapezohedrons. Yeah. Well, hi there. Samurai Swords, renamed Ikusa in 2011, earns a spot at number 4 on my list because I never had any intention of actually buying this game. In fact, I didn't even pay for my copy. I just took it from a neighbor. See, there used to be this house on my block that would frequently put free things out in their yard, out by the curb. Car parts, furniture, clothes, all sorts of things would appear. And they were always accompanied by a little small homemade sign that read, "Free, please leave sign." Apparently, so many people who would stop there for this person's leftovers would also help themselves to the little sign that they actually had to add a specific request to the sign to leave it behind. One day, as I passed by on my way to work, there was a Samurai Swords box in the free spot. I slammed on my brakes, and I leaped out of my vehicle, and I greedily scooped it up like some sort of corrupted hobbit. I expected inside to find a half-empty box full of well-worn and abused pieces, but instead, I discovered a complete copy of the game in great condition. My free prize and I sped away with glee. Oh, and I made sure to leave the sign. Samurai Swords comes with over 430 game pieces. My copy came with over 430 pleasant little surprises. The first edition of Civilization was big on pieces, short on fun. After every game that I've attempted playing with anyone whatsoever, my question of, when would you like to play this again, has universally been responded with, never, and get out of my house, which is disturbing, especially when we're playing at my own house. I was introduced to the first edition of Civilization after a friend of mine bought it himself. After we played it the first time, I even had to admit to myself, yeah, that kind of stunk. What stunk more is I had to admit this to myself as I was driving on my way to the local game shop to buy my own copy of the game. Correction, to buy my own copy of the game's pieces. Because this game's redeeming factor is the fact that it comes with 784 plastic pieces, depicting different units and technologies. And they span from the Stone Age to the modern times. In fact, the number of pieces in this game are so plentiful and fun to tinker with that I have secretly coveted my friend's copy for over a decade. Long have I patiently been waiting for the day that he's cleaning out his closet and he decides to part with his copy of the game. I'm looking at you, Yarb. Call me. I grew up playing Risk. Many Saturdays were spent embarking on epic geopolitical struggles that would consume the entire day. Unfortunately, Risk doesn't seem to get a lot of love. It's ranked at number 7,230 on Boardgame Geek's list of games, just above the T-shirt game. Last year, Risk Legacy rekindled my craving for world domination. Risk Legacy, though, was a change in the norm from the other recent Risk iterations, the change being that I actually played it for fun. There's many other versions of Risk that are tucked away in my closet. Godstorm, Castle, Lord of the Rings, StarCraft, and a half dozen copies that I've picked up for $1 at thrift stores. The difference between those and Risk Legacy is that their primary purpose is to lend their pieces to be pilfered and put in other places. Even if these days I mostly keep Risk around just for salvage, it will still always have a soft spot in my heart. On a related note, if you eat the little soldier pieces when you're a kid, they'll get lodged in your chest, creating a soft spot in your heart. Monopoly City claims spot number 1 on my list because it epitomizes the concept of this list. This game comes with 80 little buildings, skyscrapers, schools, power plants, etc. Are these pieces used to add a city planning aspect into Monopoly, injecting it with a new level of strategy? No. When you get right down to it, it's still just Monopoly. It's Monopoly with more complicated rules. Yay! And that's the problem with this game. Monopoly City doesn't add complexity to the game experience, it adds complication to it. I would love to figure out how to integrate these little buildings into actual city building games, like Suburbia. But I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet. So for now, Monopoly City's 80 little buildings just sit on my shelf, creating a tiny little plastic skyline that whispers game ideas to me. So there you go. That's my top 10 games for harvesting components. Have you ever got a game with the intention of modding it or gutting it just for parts, rather than playing it as intended? If so, let me know in either the YouTube comments, the Pair of Dice Paradise Facebook page, Google Plus page, or the website itself. I am everywhere. Thanks for watching! Until next time, I'm Chaz Marler, your component proponent. There are many other versions of Risk that are tucked away in my closet. Godstorm, Castle, Closet Castle Risk, StarCraft. And this is